Back in time, in the kingdom of Persia, one of the biggest empires the world had ever known. At the heart of this empire sat a powerful king, named King Xerxes. He had everything a king could dream of: wealth, power, servants, and a palace so beautiful that sunlight shimmered on its walls like gold dust. But even kings have problems. King Xerxes once had a queen who disobeyed him publicly. In his anger and embarrassment, he removed her from the throne. Yet after some time passed, the king began to feel lonely. The palace was quiet. The halls were empty of laughter. So his advisors came up with an idea. They said, "Your Majesty, let's gather the most beautiful young women from every corner of the empire. You can choose one of them to be your new queen." The king liked the sound of that. Orders were sent out across the land. Young women began arriving from different provinces, nervous, excited, unsure of what awaited them in the royal city of Susa. Among those women was a young woman named Esther. Now, Esther wasn't born into wealth or fame. She was an orphan who had been raised by her older cousin, Mordecai, a kind and wise man who worked near the king's gate. Mordecai loved Esther like his own daughter. He often reminded her, "Esther, always remember who you are. Be kind. Be wise. And don't forget where you come from." When Esther was chosen to go to the palace, Mordecai gave her one last piece of advice: don't tell anyone that you're Jewish. Keep it to yourself for now. So Esther obeyed, trusting his guidance. Inside the palace, the young women were cared for and prepared for their chance to meet the king. They received fine clothes, perfumes, and lessons in court etiquette. But while others focused on jewelry and beauty, Esther stood out for something different: her gentle heart and quiet strength. When the day finally came for King Xerxes to meet Esther, something special happened. The moment he saw her, his heart softened. "She's different," he thought. "There's kindness in her eyes." The king placed a royal crown on Esther's head and declared her Queen of Persia. Can you imagine? One day she was an ordinary girl, and the next, she was living in the royal palace as queen. But Esther didn't let the crown change her heart. She still remembered the lessons Mordecai had taught her: humility, wisdom, and faith. For a while, everything in the palace seemed peaceful. But behind the golden walls, a storm was slowly brewing. One day, Mordecai, who still worked near the palace gates, overheard two guards whispering angrily. They were plotting to harm the king. Without wasting a moment, Mordecai sent word to Queen Esther. "Tell the king, his life is in danger." Esther immediately warned the king, giving Mordecai the credit for uncovering the plot. The king's life was saved, and the event was recorded in the royal chronicles, though Mordecai received no reward at the time. Time passed, and a new official rose to power, a man named Haman. Haman was wealthy, proud, and loved attention. The king gave him a high position, and everyone in the kingdom bowed down when Haman passed by. Everyone. Except Mordecai. Whenever Haman walked through the gate, Mordecai simply stayed where he was. "Why don't you bow like everyone else?" people whispered. Mordecai would reply calmly, "I bow only to God." That one act made Haman furious. His pride couldn't handle it. In his anger, he decided to destroy not just Mordecai, but all the people who shared his faith, the Jews. So Haman went to the king with a clever lie. He said, "Your Majesty, there are people in your empire who don't follow your laws. They are different and rebellious. Let me remove them for you, it will make your kingdom stronger." King Xerxes trusted Haman and didn't know who these people were. So he took off his royal ring, gave it to Haman, and said, "Do as you think best." That single decision set a terrible plan into motion. Letters were sent out to every province, declaring that on a certain day, all Jews, men, women, and children, would be destroyed. Imagine the panic. Families cried, people tore their clothes in grief, and word spread quickly through the land until it reached Mordecai. He was heartbroken. He put on rough clothes, covered himself in ashes, and stood outside the palace gates, weeping loudly. When Esther's servants told her what was happening, she was shocked. "Why is Mordecai crying? What's wrong?" she asked. She sent clothes for him to wear, but he refused them. Instead, he sent her a message explaining everything. He said, "Esther, you must go to the king and beg him to save our people." Esther's hands trembled as she read the message. She knew the law: no one could go to the king uninvited. If anyone entered his court without being called, they could be put to death, unless the king held out his golden scepter in mercy. She sent a message back, "Cousin, I haven't been called to see the king in 30 days. If I go to him without being called, I could die." Then Mordecai sent words that changed everything. He said, "Don't think you will escape because you're in the palace. If you stay silent now, help will come from somewhere else, but you and your family may be lost. Who knows? Maybe you were made queen for such a time as this." Those words sank deep into Esther's heart. She realized this was her moment, her reason for being queen. She took a deep breath and sent her answer, "Tell all the Jews in the city to fast and pray for 3 days. Don't eat or drink. I and my servants will do the same. After that, I will go to the king. And if I die, I die." Her fear turned into courage. 3 days later, Esther put on her royal robe. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. She walked slowly toward the throne room where King Xerxes sat surrounded by guards and advisors. Everyone watched in silence. The law was clear, no invitation, no mercy. Would the king be angry? Would she lose her life? Then, something amazing happened. King Xerxes saw Esther standing in the doorway. His eyes softened. He lifted his golden scepter toward her. The whole room exhaled in relief. Esther was safe. The king smiled gently. "My queen," he said, "what is it you want? Ask me anything, even half my kingdom, and I will give it to you." Esther bowed and said calmly, "If it pleases the king, I would like to invite you and Haman to a special dinner I've prepared." The king agreed immediately. "Bring Haman," he said with a grin. That night, the dinner was elegant and quiet. The king asked again, "Now tell me, my queen, what is it that you truly want?" Esther smiled. "Please come again tomorrow, both you and Haman. Then I'll tell you my request." The king nodded, curious. Haman was pleased, he felt honored to be invited twice by the queen herself. But as he left the palace, his joy turned to anger when he saw Mordecai still sitting at the gate, refusing to bow. "Enough of this man!" Haman shouted to his friends. "I'll build a tall gallows, 75 feet high, and tomorrow I'll ask the king to hang Mordecai on it." His friends cheered the idea. But while Haman plotted, God was already at work behind the scenes. That very night, King Xerxes couldn't sleep. He called for the royal records to be read to him. As the servant read, the king heard the story of Mordecai saving his life years earlier. The king sat up. "Wait, did we ever reward this man?" "No, my lord," the servant replied. Just then, guess who walked in? Haman. He had come early to ask for Mordecai's death. Before Haman could speak, the king said, "Tell me, what should be done for a man the king wishes to honor?" Haman smiled, thinking the king was talking about him. "Oh. The man the king delights to honor should wear a royal robe, ride the king's own horse, and be led through the city with people shouting, 'This is what's done for the man the king honors.'" The king clapped his hands. "Excellent. Go quickly, do all that for Mordecai the Jew." Haman's smile vanished. But he couldn't refuse. The next day, the proud man who wanted Mordecai dead had to lead him through the city, shouting his praises. Imagine Haman's humiliation, and Mordecai's surprise. Haman rushes home in shame and his wife warns him that things are turning against him. That evening, the king and Haman came again to dine with Queen Esther. The king leaned forward. "Now, my queen, what is your request? Ask me anything, it will be granted." Esther took a deep breath. Her voice was calm, but her words carried power. "My king," she began, "if I have found favor in your eyes, please spare my life, and the lives of my people. We are in danger of being destroyed." The king frowned. "What? Who would dare do such a thing?" Esther turned to face Haman. "It's this wicked man, Haman." The king stood up in anger. He stepped away to calm himself, and when he returned, Haman was pleading for his life. But the decision had been made. The king ordered Haman to be executed, on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. And just like that, the tide turned. King Xerxes gave Haman's estate to Esther, and she appointed Mordecai to oversee it. But there was still one problem: the law Haman had written couldn't be undone. So the king issued a new decree. The Jews were allowed to defend themselves on the day their enemies planned to attack. When that day came, the Jews stood strong and protected their families. Victory was theirs. The danger was over. When peace finally filled the land again, there was great joy among the Jewish people. They celebrated with food, laughter, and thanksgiving. That day became a yearly celebration called Purim, a reminder that God can turn fear into courage, sorrow into joy, and danger into deliverance. Mordecai was promoted to the highest position under King Xerxes, and Queen Esther remained loved and respected for her wisdom and bravery. Now, pause for a moment and think about this. Esther didn't have superpowers. She wasn't born into royalty. She didn't even know what her life's purpose was, until the moment came when she had to choose courage over fear. Her story reminds us that sometimes we are placed in certain situations for a reason we can't see right away. Maybe you're in your job, your school, or your family, for such a time as this. It also teaches us that courage doesn't mean we aren't afraid, it means we act with faith even when we are. Esther could have stayed silent. But she didn't. She spoke up. She stood for what was right, and because of her bravery, an entire nation was saved. So what about you? What if the place you're standing in right now is exactly where you're meant to make a difference? You might not wear a crown or live in a palace, but you have something powerful, your voice, your kindness, your courage, your faith. Remember, the smallest act of bravery can change everything. And just like Queen Esther, you can be the reason someone's life is saved, changed, or lifted today. So whenever you doubt your purpose, think of Esther, the orphan girl who became a queen, the quiet woman who found her courage, and the brave heart who reminded the world that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, can change history forever. Because sometimes, lone moment of courage is all it takes to save a generation.